Now, how do you do examination of the wrist joint? As usual with all the other joints or orthopedic examination, we classify examination into first observation, or you can say inspection. Then second is palpation. And third and last is spatial test. Now it is prudent to say that during the time of observation and inspection, you can also test range of motion of the wrist joint. Okay. So the first is observation and range of motion, second is palpation, and third is spatial test. Now, one thing is very important when you are doing wrist examination or when you are examining a patient with wrist pathology or any symptom related to wrist. It is very important that you correlate all your things. It is not that patient is complaining of pain on the ulnar aspect, suppose pain on the radial aspect, and you are finding on examination that the symptom is the sign, the tenderness is located on the ulnar aspect, and on MRI you found that there is a TFCC tear. Okay, so that means no, the diagnosis is neither TFCC tear nor some radial pathology. All should be correlated. That is, if patient is complaining of ulnar sided wrist pain, you are finding signs of ulnar infection syndrome, and on MRI you are also finding some altered signal intensity in the lunate or the triquetrum or the head of the ulna or TFCC tear, then that means all the three things you have correlated, now you can reach a diagnosis. Okay, so there should be a coherence between your history, clinical examination findings and radiological investigation. So this is important. Now in history, the important thing is that the patient should be exactly able to pinpoint the site of pain. And you should specifically ask whether pain is more on the radial side of the wrist or more on the ulnar side of the wrist. Okay? Then you can have a diagnosis, differential diagnosis in your brain that probably I am dealing with this on the radial side and this on the ulnar side. So for the sake of simplicity, examination of the wrist can be divided into four. First is radial, second is dorsal wrist examination, third is ulnar wrist examination, fourth is palmar wrist examination. So that means you are running clockwise. First you start from the radial side, then you go to the dorsal side, then you go to the ulnar side, and ultimately you go to the palmar side. Okay, so all 360 degree of the wrist you have examined. Now we will come to each one by one. So what are the things you will examine on the radial side of the wrist? So number one thing you will examine is the radial scaphoid, or more specifically scaphoid tuberosity. All of you can appreciate where is scaphoid tuberosity. I will tell you. You just see here, okay? Hold his hand like this, metacarpus like this, and this is the scaphoid tuberosity. Okay? You can move it, you can move that, you will find that it is moving with the movement of the hand. Okay, it is not fixed. While slightly proximal if you come, you will find distal radius, it will not move with the movement of the hand. So this is the scaphoid tuberosity. You have to appreciate certain things about scaphoid movement and motion. So all of you should remember that scaphoid aligns itself with the radius when it is in the ulnar deviation. Okay, so that scaphoid is completely straight in line with the radius when it is in the ulnar deviation and wrist is slightly in extension. While scaphoid rotates volarly, so that the scaphoid tuberosity it will be more prominent when you move your wrist radially and you flex it. Okay, so you can appreciate this finding. You try to palpate your scaphoid tuberosity by keeping the wrist in radial deviation. Keep your wrist in radial deviation. Now you feel your scaphoid tuberosity and you slightly flex it. So it will be more better appreciable. While at the same time you take your wrist to the ulnar side and extend it. Now it will be almost impossible. So that means from the position of flexion in the radial wrist direction, it has gone into position of extension. That's why to see the full profile of the scaphoid, we do what view?
Scaphoid.
Not scaphoid view. AP view or TA view of the wrist with ulnar deviation and slight extension. We specifically ask whenever a patient is suspected to be having scaphoid fracture, what X-ray you will do? AP view of the wrist with hand in ulnar deviation. That means whole of the profile will be visible on the scaphoid because and it will be aligned with the radius. Now many a times because of some degenerative conditions or some chronic non-union of the scaphoid, there may happen cartilage degeneration of the scaphoid fossa of the distal radius or scaphoid itself. Okay, that means there will be scaphoid chondromalacia. Another common pathology, not common, but if there is history of trauma and patient is complaining of pain persistent on the radial side of the wrist and slight instability, then you should think about scapholunate instability. Okay, scapholunate is a very important ligament which helps in aligning or keeping the scaphoid and lunate in place. Okay, the next bone in the proximal row to the scaphoid is the lunate, and there is a very important ligament that is called as SL ligament, scapholunate ligament. Now I will do one maneuver. So what you do is, this is the right hand of the patient. Okay, so I will just palpate the scaphoid tuberosity. Okay, now I will take the hand of the patient into the ulnar deviation. Okay, now what I will do is I will keep the pressure on the scaphoid tuberosity and now I will try to move the wrist in radial deviation. I am not able to move his wrist in radial deviation because I am keeping the scaphoid extended. Okay, that means scaphoid must be flexed or rotated to move the carpus radially. Okay, now what are the implications of this anatomical finding? The implication is that suppose there is scapholunate instability. Normally what will happen is that when you do this maneuver, when you are palpating the scaphoid tuberosity, okay, and now you are trying to bring the wrist into radial deviation. Now if there is scapholunate instability, what will happen is you will find a mass on the dorsal aspect of the wrist. Okay, and you will find that suddenly when you release scaphoid from anterior side, you will find that suddenly there will be a clump and it will relocate to its normal position. So if this finding is there, that means we are dealing with a case of scapholunate instability. And this test is called as scaphoid shift test and it is suggestive of scapholunate instability. Now the second structure to examine the radial side is the FCR tendon. So you can appreciate that just ulnar to the scaphoid tuberosity is the FCR tendon. Okay, and you can feel that when you flex your wrist slightly against resistance, it will become more prominent. Okay, So FCR tendon is a little bit just ulnar to the scaphoid tuberosity. Now where is the insertion of FCR? So what happens, FCR, it just goes adjacent to the scaphoid tuberosity and it goes distally and it makes a tunnel through the trapezium, fibro-osseous tunnel into the trapezium, and ultimately it goes and inserts into the base of the second metacarpal. So ECRL inserts on the base of the
second,
but on the dorsal side, while the opposite tendon is FCR, which again inserts on the base of the second metacarpal but on the polar. Now, so if you find very carefully, if you palpate the FCR tendon very carefully, you go from proximal to distal. Patient may complain of, I am having pain on the radial side of the wrist. Okay, so all these are differential diagnosis of pain on the radial side of the wrist. Okay, so you very carefully palpate first the scaphoid tuberosity, there is no tenderness. You have done scaphoid shift test, it is normal, but still patient is saying that yes, I am having pain, but you could not find any finding. Now you palpate the FCR tendon, go distally, the point where it disappears, just ulnar and distal to the scaphoid tuberosity, you palpate there. If there is tenderness there, it indicates tendinitis of the FCR tendon. So radial-sided wrist pain, this positive finding, your diagnosis will be FCR tendinitis. Now the third thing you will examine on the radial side is the ST joint, that is scaphotrapezial joint. Okay, so it is very simple. How do you locate the ST joint? What you do, you just palpate the scaphoid tuberosity, you go a little bit distally, a little bit radially, and you move the thumb metacarpal. Okay, and you try to push your nail deeper. So you will find at one point that you can appreciate a little distally movement of the thumb metacarpal, but slightly proximally you will find that there is no movement and there is a depression. So that is the ST joint. ST joint. Okay, and if you are finding any tenderness there or any pain on movement, then it indicates what? Scaphotrapezial arthritis. That is arthritis in the ST joint. And in the initial stages, the treatment is simple steroid injection. So you just palpate the scaphoid tuberosity, go a little bit distally and radially, and you will find a depression there. You just inject your needle there. So this is a very common cause of radial-sided wrist pain again. Okay. Now what is the next? Next thing you will examine is the radial artery. So radial artery, the next thing is first dorsal compartment, APL and EPB. So these are the two tendons in the first dorsal compartment. What are the tendons in second compartment?
so extensor carpi radialis longus and extensor carpi radialis brevis.
Third compartment,
Extensor pollicis longus.
fourth compartment, Abdul Samad, extensor digitorum. Fifth compartment, extensor distinctor. Very good. So the first dorsal compartment, that is APL and EPB. Now you have to examine these two. So you appreciate something that you just abduct your thumb away from the palm, you will find prominence. So the tendons of the first dorsal compartment, they form the boundary of the anatomical snuff box. You are aware of this from your anatomy classes. Now which one is which? Which one is APL, which one is EPB? Very simple test. So you fix your phalanx. So you fix your MCP joint and you try to extend it. The tendon which you will feel is the APL tendon. APL. Why? If you fix your metacarpal, you extend your this thing, MCP joint, the tendon you will feel is the EPB tendon. Now, what is the common pathology which you come across in this first dorsal compartment? Dequervance tenosynovitis. And what is the test we do for dequervance tenosynovitis? Finkelstein's test. So, how do you do Finkelstein's test?
Flex the thumb and
Flex the MCP joint. Ask the patient. So, you put your thumb inside your palm, rightly. And now I will slightly radially, ulnarly deviate it. The patient will feel pain. Any pain? Now what is the next thing you will examine on the radial side? Radial styloid. So just deep to the tendons of the first compartment you palpate. Just deep. Don't go into the anatomical snuff box. Just deep to the first dorsal compartment you will find radial scaphoid. Radial styloid. And if you are finding tenderness there, what does this indicate, Sukhmin?
Sir, it indicates the arthritic changes or the previous trauma history.
So suppose there is non-union of the scaphoid for long standing period. So there may be arthritis and there may be osteophyte formation in this region. Okay. There may be subtle non-union of the radial styloid. You may find this. Okay. So these findings may be found during examination of the radial styloid. Now next is the radial examination. Next thing you have to keep in mind is the intersection syndrome. Now what is intersection syndrome? Anybody? So Abdul Samad, what is intersection syndrome? So intersection syndrome, what happens is that there is inflammation at the crossing of the first and the second compartment tendons. So a little proximal, about 5 centimeter, 4 to 5 centimeter proximal to the radial styloid you come. It is the point where your first compartment, that is APL and EPB, they run over the
ECRB
and ECR. That is second compartment tendon. So this site of inflammation, tenosynovitis, is called as the intersection syndrome. And it is very easy to confuse intersection syndrome with dequervance tenosynovitis. Finkelstein's test may be positive in both, but the differentiating feature is that in dequervance you will find pain and tenderness a little distally, more near the radial styloid, while in the intersection syndrome you will find the same things a little proximally, somewhere here. Okay, so this is the important finding. And if it is there, then treatment is completely different. That's why it is important to diagnose exactly whether I am dealing with a case of dequervance or I am dealing with a case of intersection syndrome. Another important cause of radial siderodylism pain. Now what is the next? Superficial radial nerve. Not easily palpable, but in thin individuals like, so what you do, you simply just ulnarly deviate your wrist and you just under the tendon of the brachioradialis, from underneath the brachioradialis tendon it becomes superficial. You can palpate about 4 to 5 centimeter. I am not able to palpate myself. But they say that if it is thickened or if there is neuritis, you may elicit tenderness or tingling in the distribution of this nerve. Okay. So if there is on tapping tingling or there is on rolling the nerve over the bone or the tendon, if the patient finds tingling in the distribution, it is suggestive of superficial radial neuritis. Now coming to first CMC, a very common problem in elderly patients, that is thumb basal joint arthritis. Okay. First CMC joint arthritis, that is first carpometacarpal joint arthritis. Very easy, very superficial joint. So just along the radial aspect of the radius, you palpate and you go distally, and you will find at one point that you can appreciate movement of the thumb, but a little bit proximal you cannot appreciate. So this is the first CMC joint. Okay, and you may find that if the arthritis is very advanced in the CMC joint, so what happens is the thumb goes into chronic abduction and you will find prominence here. So that sign is called as the shoulder sign. Okay, shoulder sign. It will become like a shoulder. There will be a sudden elevation and it will become like a shoulder. So this is called as shoulder sign. And you can do grind test. First CMC grind test. So what you do, you just hold the thumb in your right hand, wrist here, and you can give pressure here and you can palpate it, you can reduce it, or you can just give axial pressure and you try to supinate and pronate the thumb. So if patient is having pain, that means you are dealing with a case of first CMC joint arthritis. To examine on the radial side of the wrist is the anatomical isthmus box. So what are the boundaries, Subhajit?
Laterally, extensor pollicis longus, or
APL and EPV, then
and medially EPV.
EPL along with the ECR.
Followed by
What about the proximal? Distal
Radial
radius.
side, distal radius.
And what about distal?
First.
Okay. So coming to scaphoid, this thing, anatomical isthmus box examination. So you go distally, okay, you palpate just here between these two, you abduct the thumb, you will find anatomical isthmus box. So what you do, you can do ulnar deviation of the wrist of the patient and palpate the anatomical isthmus box. So what actually you are palpating is the waist of the scaphoid. So if you ulnarly deviate your wrist and you palpate it, then that means you are palpating the waist of the scaphoid. So any subtle fracture, non-union, you may find tenderness in anatomical isthmus box, then probably you are dealing with a case of either pathology in the scaphoid waist or maybe non-union arthritic changes in the surrounding area. Okay. So if you directly want to palpate the waist of the scaphoid, palpate into the anatomical isthmus box. So this completes examination on the radial side of the wrist. Now coming to dorsal wrist examination. And slightly radially if you come, you can find a depression and that is called as the scapholunate interval. So if there is sprain, you can find a tenderness there, okay. You can find synovitis in that joint, okay. But most commonly, you can palpate for tenderness in the keyboard. Now on the dorsal side, you have to examine the two extensor digitorum communis and extensor digiti minimi. So you just ask the patient to extend the wrist, extend the finger, and you can just palpate all the tendons. And if there is thickening tenderness, then you may probably are dealing with a case of tenosynovitis or synovitis of these tendons. Then you have to examine the carpometacarpal joint. Already we have examined first CMC, but other carpometacarpal joint. A little bit distal to this lunate, you go and palpate for any tenderness, any instability. Okay, you just hold the patient wrist, okay, like this, and you do pressure like this. Okay, you compare from both the sides. If there is instability either in the radiocarpal joint or the midcarpal joint, then you may find something abnormal. Okay, you have to compare from the opposite side. Instability, not very common, but you have to. So this completes examination of the dorsal side of the wrist. Ulnar wrist examination. So on the ulnar side, first you will examine the dorsal side. Dorsal ulnar examination. Now what are the things you will examine on the dorsal ulnar side? So first you have to examine the ulnocarpal space. Now you have to appreciate the fact that ulna it articulates with the lunate, half of the lunate, and then more medial you come with triquetrum. Okay. Pisiform does not form the joint, but it is into the tendon. Okay. So basically the ulnar side of the wrist forms the joint between the distal ulna. The important structures are the head of the ulna, okay, then there is articular disc, then there is radial stelloid, and all this they form the TFCC. That is triangular yes, TFCC. So when we come across a patient who complains of pain on the ulnar side of the wrist, then you should be aware that probably I am either dealing with some ulnar impaction syndrome or TFCC tear or arthritis in some other adjacent joints or tendonitis in the ECU or FCU. Okay, you have to think on these lines. What do you do? This is his head of the ulna. It is visible. Head of the ulna. Why? If you go a little bit more palmarly, you will find ulnar styloid. Okay, more palmarly and more distal. So this is the head of the ulna. More palmarly, more distally, you will find ulnar styloid. Now between the head of the ulna and the carpus, you can find a space, and that space is called as the ulnocarpal space. Now what you do? You just palpate, go distally a little bit like this, and you palpate here along the lunate, medial side of the lunate, because half of the lunate is articulating with the radius and the other half is articulating with the ulna. So you palpate this, and if you are finding any tenderness here, that means you are dealing with some pathology in this joint. And most commonly we find with the chondromalacia in the lunate. And this syndrome, that is called as chondromalacia of the distal ulna and the chondromalacia of the lunate, they all causes ulnar impaction syndrome, a very common diagnosis. And anatomically and in studies they have found that patients with a positive ulnar variance has a higher chance of developing this ulnar impaction syndrome. Okay. So on clinically, if you find, usually what is the normal relationship between the ulnar and the radial styloid? Which one is distal? Radial. So if you find that both are at the same or the relationship is not as it should have been, that means clinically there is positive ulnar variance. And if there is positive ulnar variance, that means there will be more loading of the ulnar side of the wrist. And this will ultimately lead to, if you do MRI in the initial stages, there will be altered signal intensity into the head of the ulna, into the lunate and into the triquetrum. So if you are finding a patient who is complaining of pain on the ulnar side, who is on examination of the ulnocarpal space, you find tenderness on the lunate medial side, and on MRI you find altered signal into the head of the ulna and into the lunate and triquetrum, your diagnosis will be ulnar impaction syndrome. And the most common mode of management for this condition is ulnar shortening osteotomy. But you have to remember that the same finding you may find in TFCC tears, because TFCC tears, they also alters the biomechanics of the wrist so that it will cause secondary ulnar impaction. So not only you have to deal with ulnar impaction, but you may have to repair the TFCC also. But many a times the surgeons get away only by doing something for ulnar impaction without touching the TFCC. Okay, so this is this. Now, ulnar impaction syndrome, there is a test that is called as ulnar grind test. Now, how will you do it? So what you do? You just hold the patient wrist like this, okay, and hold the hand like this. Take it ulnarly, and you give proximal pressure here, and you do a little bit of supination and pronation. You are feeling any pain? So if patient feels pain on this maneuver, that is ulnar grind test, then probably I am dealing with a case of ulnar impaction syndrome. Okay, hold it like this, ulnarly deviate, proximally diverted force, and do pronation and supination. Very useful test, very commonly done in our OPD. Now the next structure you have to examine on this side is the ECU. Extensor carpi ulnaris. So it is a very prominent tendon. Okay. So what do? You can feel it here. Okay. Just distal to the your ulnar head. Okay. Now the important thing is that this tendon, that is I am holding this ECU tendon. So the important thing is that in pronated position of the wrist, it is more ulnar, while in the supinated position, if I supinate his wrist, then it becomes more central. This is the beauty of this anatomy of the ECU. But the thing is that ECU has not moved from its position because it is firmly adherent to the ulna with a tunnel, with a sheath. But the thing is that actually the carpus and the metacarpal have moved when you are taking your hand from pronated to the supinated position. So that you will find that now my ECU has gone from the ulnar direction to the more central direction. Now you have to palpate very carefully, and if you find any tenderness, any thickening, that probably I am dealing with a case of ECU tendonitis. So you have to rule out ulnar. These are all differential diagnoses of pain on the ulnar side of the wrist. That is, you may deal with a TFCC tear, you may deal with ulnar impaction syndrome, you may deal with ECU tendonitis. Now, another important differential diagnosis of the ulnar sided wrist pain is USTI. That is ulnar styloid triquetrum impaction syndrome. Okay, ulnar styloid triquetrum impaction syndrome. So you have to differentiate between the ulnar impaction syndrome, which was between the lunate and triquetrum there with the ulnar head, while here the problem is infection between the ulnar styloid and the triquetrum. Okay. So ulnar styloid I have already told you. So this is his head of the ulna. You go a little bit ulnarly and palmarly, you will find a prominence, and that is the ulnar styloid. Okay. Now, how will you do the provocation test or maneuver for this USTI? So what do? You just from the position of pronation, okay, from the position of pronation, you take the patient's wrist into the position of supination and give a force which is ulnarly directed. And if patient feels pain in this maneuver, that means probably you are dealing with a case of USTI. Now the ulnar styloid also changes its position like ECU. You can feel yourself that in the pronated position of the wrist, it is more ulnar, while in the supinated position, it is more central. So when your wrist is in the supinated position, it is more, the ulnar styloid is more nearer to the triquetrum. And when it becomes more nearer, further nearer is when you do a little bit of extension, that is dorsiflexion and ulnar deviation. So if patient is complaining of pain that when I take my hand into the back pocket, then probably you are dealing with a case of USTI. Repeated page turning, when you are turning your page so that your wrist goes into supination, ulnar deviation and dorsiflexion. Hand in back pocket. If the patient is complaining of pain in these maneuvers, then you should think that probably I am dealing with a case of this type. Now coming to next. So this we have finished the dorsal ulnar examination. Ulnar side, dorsal ulnar. Now here the next is the DRUJ. Very important joint. That is distal radioulnar joint. And most commonly we find either arthritis or instability. When do you find arthritis in DRUJ? Most commonly, very commonly. So what is the most common pathology where your distal radioulnar biomechanics alters? Distal radius fracture, very common fracture. Every alternate fracture you get in trauma center is the distal radius fracture. And if it goes into malunion, it causes altered biomechanics of the DRUJ and its patient will complain of pain. So what you do, simply if there is frank subluxation or dislocation, you may simply find that there is more elevation of the ulna as compared to radius, looking from here and in the supinated position. You can just inspect it, observe it. There may be abnormal, or there may be actually it is rotating, okay, but it may be rotating more as compared to the opposite side. Okay, this is one point. Now the another provocative maneuver to look for instability of DRUJ is the piano key test. So what happens is, piano key test or ballotment test. So what you do, you just elbow at 90 degree, wrist in full extension or neutral position, forearm in pronated position. You just hold the forearm on the radial side like this and you catch hold of the pisiform. I am holding his pisiform here, okay? Pisiform so that you stabilize the hand and then you give pressure on the distal ulna like this. You find that as you give pressure like this and then it will be dislocated or subluxated and suddenly you lose pressure, it will go back like a piano key. I have although not seen a piano, but they say. Okay, so piano key test. So we have examined dorsal ulnar, we have examined DRUJ, and now we will come to palmar ulnar. So on palmar ulnar side, you have to examine the pisiform bone. So you just, the most important elevation just distal to the ulna in the palm, you will find is the pisiform. Okay. So you just see whether there is any pain or tenderness or not. And there is sometimes, rarely, you may find pisotriquetral arthritis. Pisotriquetral arthritis. So what you do, you just catch hold of the pisiform and you grind against the adjacent bone. If patient is complaining of pain in this maneuver, that probably, I have not seen any patients of this, but they say that probably you are dealing with a case of pisotriquetral arthritis, and this test is called as the pisotriquetral grind test. Now the more important is the hook of the hamate. So what you do, you just palpate your pisiform. You keep your IP joint of the thumb, of your examining thumb on the pisiform, and you direct your tip of the thumb to the middle finger. And now you palpate an elevation. Can you find something? So this is the hook of the hamate. Okay. So you keep your IP joint of the thumb on the pisiform and you direct this towards the middle finger. You will find an elevation here. So this is the hook of the hamate. So you can palpate the hook of the hamate. And if you find a tenderness here, you may have non-union or a fresh fracture of the hook of the hamate. Or another important thing is that the deep branch of the ulnar nerve, it passes adjacent to the hook of the hamate. So a little bit proximally, if the patient is complaining of tingling or pain while pressing here for some time, then it means you are dealing with a case of ulnar nerve neuritis. Okay, may happen. Because the ulnar nerve, after passing through the Guyon's canal, it goes adjacent to the hook of the hamate. And the last structure here is the FC. That is flexor carpi ulnaris. So again, you can palpate. Actually, flexor carpi ulnaris is more muscular than tendinous. Okay, it is a very bulky muscle, FCU muscle, very strong and bulky muscle. Unlike FCR, FCR is more tendinous and less fleshy, while FCU is more bulky. So you can feel, you can see here that my FCR muscle is more bulky here, FCU, sorry. Okay, so you can feel, you can palpate right up to the pisiform and distally. If there is tenderness or pain, that means you are probably dealing with a case of FCU tendinitis. Now coming to the palmar wrist examination. Palmar wrist examination, there is not much. You can find tendon of the palmaris longus. And what is the importance of finding palmaris longus? Why it is important? Tendon transfer surgery. In how many percentage of the cases pragdishram it is present? How many normal list it may not be present? 12 to 15% of the cases it may not be there. In 85% of the wrist it is there, but 15% it may not be there. So this completes your wrist examination. So to summarize, the examination of the wrist, it should be systematic. It is not that you are examining here and there, no. So now at least one thing you have known, that I will divide wrist into 4 compartments. First is the radial side, second is the dorsal side, third is the ulnar side, and fourth is the palmar or polar side. I will go to each side one by one. If patient is complaining of pain on the radial side, then I will focus more attention on the radial side. If patient is complaining more pain or symptoms on the ulnar side, so different differential diagnosis will come to my mind. Now, what are the important differential diagnosis of pain on the radial side of the wrist?
Sir, on radial side, the differentials will be the pathology related to the scaphoid, pathology related to the distal radius, pathology related to the extensor compartments and the flexor tendons, and pathology related to the first CMC joint or the trapezius
So
joint.
one by one you can count. So you may deal with DQ11 stenosynovitis, you may come across intersection syndrome, you may come across arthritis due to non-union of the scaphoid wrist, you may come across ST arthritis, you may come across first CMC arthritis. So these 4-5 are the important differential diagnosis of pain on the radial. Or very rarely you may come across neuritis of the superficial radial. Okay, on the dorsal side, if there is pain, there are one most important DD, that is Kienbock's disease, and there may be tenosynovitis of the extensor tendon. Ulnar side again is very important because most common wrist symptom which patient comes to is with the ulnar sided wrist. Doctor साहब मेरे इधर पेन होता है. So first DD will be ulnar infection syndrome, which may be primarily because of positive ulnar variance, that is chondromalacia of the lunate and head of the ulna, and it may be because secondarily because of TMCC tears. You may come across ECU tendinitis, you may come across FCU tendinitis, you may come across USTI, that is ulnar styloid triquetrum infection syndrome. Okay, and very rarely you may come across pisotriquetral arthritis. Okay, all these things you have to examine.